Hello and welcome to the late fall edition of STEM Jobs Magazine. This is our webinar that goes through all of the content in the magazine and lesson plans and everything we have got to offer. So this issue of STEM Jobs Magazine is our Never Grow Up issue. We feature music, science, technology, toy design, real-life superheroes, and jobs of the future. So Ellen and I are going to talk about the content in the magazine and lesson plans that are there, and let you know a little bit about the stuff we've developed that goes along with this issue. So we'll start off with music science and technology. So we went out and we talked to Zildjian cymbal makers. So Zildjian is a 400-year-old company. Mm-hmm. They're actually the oldest company based in America. Right?
Oldest family-owned business.
Family-owned business in America,
in the
right?
United States.
And it's an interesting thing to be a 400-year-old company. They've gone through multiple industrial revolutions, really, in terms of how products are manufactured. Started off with a guy who was an alchemist, Arvidas Zildjian, and he was trying to make gold and wasn't able to accomplish that, but he did make this material that had a really great sound to it when struck. So started making cymbals, and they're still the biggest cymbal maker in the entire world. Mm-hmm. If you go to their website and look at all the different musicians over the years that have used Zildjian cymbals, it's a pretty impressive list. And so we had a really great time talking with them, and got to see how they do what they do, and talk to some of the different folks there that actually do sound testing, or they test the cymbals. They actually manufacture the cymbals, and they're also getting in a lot into digital music, a lot of music technology. One of the things that we're always trying to emphasize is that STEM is in everything, and that if you're a person that likes music, there are great STEM jobs there. In fact, I'm a music major, was my original degree, and I know that there's all kinds of science and math and engineering that goes into music fields, but just hundreds of jobs in the music area that are centered around STEM.
That's right, and that's something I think that this article does a really nice job of illustrating, is you might love music and want that to be your profession, but there are different alternatives out there other than being a rock star or a pop star, which so few people are successful at. So I think it's really nice for you to be able to explore with students the different STEM careers that are available within the music industry, so that they can pursue that passion and make a living at the same time. So this is a really nice vehicle for that conversation.
Yeah, it was a fun article to write. So our lesson plan that goes with that, we asked students to create a space for a specific musical purpose. So, for instance, we actually have two activities. One is they have to create kind of an acoustic hall, like one for a concert hall, and they've got to get the sound to go to a specific location. Mm-hmm. The other activity they have, they're actually trying to design a room that might be used for a nursery in a hospital, and so it has to more absorb the sound that's in there. But also, you don't want sound traveling from that room to other rooms next to it. Right. If you have a bunch of crying babies in a room. So it really asks students to look at different material properties, cost those out, and design spaces that will do specific things around sound properties and again, directing sound in specific directions. So a really fun activity. Again, we're always wanting students to operate in teams. So we have students as teams, and they design some of these things, and they have to, as always, explain what they do and understand why it works the way it works. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really, really fun activity for students to go through.
Okay. So then after music in the magazine, we tackled toys and the toy industry. How many of us as children wish that we could somehow get paid to play with toys as a real job? So first we talked to Debbie Sterling, who was the founder and CEO of Goldie Blox. And it's a really interesting story that I think is inspiring to a lot of young students who, have a desire to be entrepreneurs and be their own bosses and do something different for the world. So Debbie Sterling was kind of frustrated by the toy options available in the traditional pink aisle in most toy stores. And she wanted to design a toy that would disrupt the pink aisle and expose girls to engineering and some different possibilities outside of the typical gender roles that we provide. So she started Goldie Blox with a Kickstarter campaign, and her initial goal was $150,000, which she thought was a huge amount of money, but she actually reached her goal in 4 days, um, which I think was a testament to her and to others that this was a real issue for our girls today, and that it was a problem that needed a solution.
Yeah.
So Goldie Blox makes really cool engineering toys, including some characters like Ruby on Rails became a character called Ruby Rails. So these toys are encouraging girls to be engineers, to build things, to step outside of playing just with dolls and make something. And one of my favorite quotes from Debbie Sterling is, I have no problem with girls who want to be princesses. I just think they should also be able to build their own castles. So just a really inspiring entrepreneur, visionary for the toy industry. So we had a great talk with her, and then we also got to speak with the folks at Lego, which was really
that was
exciting.
a really fun one because I growing up, Legos were a big part of my life, and I think most of us identify with Legos. It's actually the most recognizable brand in the entire world right now.
And in 2015, they became the most powerful brand in the world, overtaking Ferrari.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. I happen to have a friend that works at Lego Education, and there are two kind of branches to Lego. One really focuses on the toys, and one focuses on utilizing those the bricks they call. They always refer to they have one product at Lego. They make bricks. That's what they do. And Lego Education focuses on how do we use that in educational settings. But they actually went through a period of really struggling about 10 years ago. But the resurgence, I think, of engineering and STEM overall, and their focus on using their bricks in an educational setting really brought them back. And now you think about all the things you see in the aisles. Every movie has Lego figures that go with it. It's a really remarkable place. And they do amazing stuff. We get to talk to a gentleman who works in the headquarters in Denmark, and he basically just plays with toys and gets to design and think of new ways to use Legos and robotics and different settings for education. So a really fun way to look at not just designing a toy, but how it can actually be utilized in the educational setting, and really take that to the next level that way.
That's right. So to go along with the toy section of the magazine, we have a lesson plan that actually encourages students to design their own toy, and then we kind of guide them along designing their own Kickstarter campaign, a mock Kickstarter campaign, so that they can see, how they budget, what types of rewards they can provide investors, and actually going through a cost analysis of creating this toy, doing some market research, and then creating a prototype to share with the rest of the class, and then their classmates actually get to vote on which toy design they were most likely to invest their money in. So just a really unique chance to get students to be creative, to integrate. We always talk about how we feel that the arts are an integral part of STEM automatically without even using the A in that acronym. But to let them use their creativity to modify an existing product or to create a whole new product that serves a purpose, and then go through the process of actually marketing that to a larger audience.
Yeah, I mean, the arts are such a critical part of STEM. Again, with our music issue or our music section and the toy design section, without artists to make the things beautiful and to really think about how do we get creative with these things, STEM really is limited. If there aren't people utilizing science and utilizing the mathematics and technology and engineering things in creative and beautiful ways, then there's not a whole lot of point to a lot of it. So we definitely know that arts are a huge part of STEM. So is that all we have for the toy section? All right. So the next section we had was jobs of the future. And so we tried to kind of look forward at what jobs are going to be a big part down the road. And the first one we had for that was
Shell Games.
Shell Games, right.
So Shell Games is the largest independent game firm in the United States. And they're actually located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is near us. Yeah. So that was nice. We actually got to go to their studio and sit down with 3 different people who all have very different roles at Shell Games and talk to them about their backgrounds and how they got to where they are now. And one of my favorite things about this article is that they all took very different paths to get to the video game industry. One of the people we interviewed actually went to school and became an architect, and then when she graduated, she explained that the field wasn't as glamorous as she thought it would be. She really didn't want to have to worry about building codes, so she thought about where else is there architecture, and one really obvious place to her was within video games. So she was able to actually take her architecture degree and translate it to a successful career in video games.
And no zoning issues in it.
And no zoning issues whatsoever, no. So I think that that's a really interesting takeaway for a lot of our students, that, it's okay to walk down a path and then decide that's not really for you. But that doesn't mean that the experiences that you've had along that way aren't valuable.
Right.
And so much of life is taking what you've already learned and applying it to a new situation, and that's what she was able to successfully do.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's really inspiring.
And you can be passionate about something like architecture and be someone who really enjoys video games either way, and you can realize that, man, if I want to go down that road, there's all kinds of avenues to that. Right. We saw that with our early fall issue with the Geo Spatial Engineers, where it's actually one of the most in-demand kind of jobs in the video game industry, because they need those guys to be able to develop the worlds that these games exist in. So if you're playing whatever game it is, whether it's Tomb Raider or Call of Duty or any of those kind of games where you're exploring a world, that world was designed by somebody who really had a sense of, how do we make this realistic? You can't have these gigantic geographical figures in places that don't make sense, that don't act the right way. Otherwise, the game feels really fake and phony. So yeah, you have all these people that started off wanting to work in making maps, but they realized they had a passion for video game design or architecture as well, and now they're able to kind of do these amazing things. So yeah, absolutely, you got to realize that there's all kinds of pathways that you can take, and just follow what you love, follow what you're passionate about, and that will lead you in a good direction.
Definitely. So to go along with that article, we have a lesson plan that actually encourages students to create a location-based game, which is something that they do a lot of at Shell. So what that means is actually, having students or classmates in this case follow a path that you've set out for them based on coordinates, based on math functions that you've created to get them from one point to another, almost in a geocaching way, but limited to your school campus.
Right.
So that, it's a little bit more of a controlled environment, so that students can actually see how the coordinate plane relates to real life, see how, lines intersecting can mean something on a map, and those kinds of things. So we're helping kids make connections between different types of functions and the coordinate plane and the world around them.
Right. It's a great way to get math, as a former math teacher, it's a great way to get students to understand that mathematic formulas and equations, quadratic formulas, those kind of things, you can manipulate those to do what you want them to do. I think students often feel like, I don't understand this because I'm trying to get the right answer, and I'm trying to take the situation that's been kind of thrust upon me. And this is a great way to say, hey, you want these people to get from here to here, and you want to use a quadratic equation to do that. So describe it, or maybe the path they have to take is in fact a piece function, or it's, whatever it is. So it's a great way to get students to really apply the mathematics in a unique and kind of fun, interesting way.
Make it feel a little bit less abstract, which is always a good thing.
And it simulates that whole virtual reality kind of piece, where a lot of games are, again, placing you down into virtual settings, but that are real settings, and asking you that. So it's a great activity that really gives students a nice experience of what they do there at Shell.
Agreed.
So the one we had was JewelBots.
That's right. So JewelBots is another really cool story that I think is just nice to share with your students. Glenn and I talk a lot about how failure in so many school settings has become a four-letter word. Students don't want to fail. Teachers don't want their students to fail, but leading entrepreneurs have credited failure with their success. They have to fail, they have to learn from those failures to be able to be successful down the road. So I love talking about JewelBots because the founder of the company had this idea for a bracelet that would work electronically and be able to change colors based on the color of the outfit you were wearing. And she thought that would be something that would have a lot of appeal to preteens and teenage girls. And then they got out there and started talking to some focus groups.
Nobody
wanted that. And instead of, just scrapping the whole idea and deciding, that maybe their company shouldn't happen, JewelBot sat down with those girls and talked about what girls do want, what the market is lacking, and what they came up with is actually really cool. And it's a friendship bracelet that is programmable through open code. You can actually download an app for free and program it to do some different things. It syncs with your other friends' friendship bracelets, so if they're near you, your bracelet changes colors. You can send messages through it. You can program it to light up whenever you get a new message or whenever you get a new tweet or a new friend on social media. So some really cool things that it's able to do. But my favorite part of the JewelBot is that it is open source. So it's not only giving girls something cool that they like to wear, it's also encouraging them to code.
Yeah, learning to code is big.
Which is, a really cool skill to have and a technology sector that is lacking in women. So
Right.
I think the younger that we can get girls excited about coding and see a real life application, and how cool is it to be able to go on your computer and change something and then have it change on your wrist.
Yeah.
So some real time interaction that I think is really impactful for young women.
And wearable fashion is, it's been limited largely to like fitness kind of bands and that kind of stuff, but I think that's going to change, and it's nice to see. Let's see what kind of things we can do that with wearable fashions that are going to really, drive the next generation of all of those items. So the last one we had for Jobs of the Future was Holomics.
No.
No.
Open Bionics.
Oh, Open Bionics. Sorry, Holomics is next right?
issue. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So Open Bionics, they sound kind of the same too.
They do.
So Open Bionics, really interesting company, and they actually have developed basically do-it-yourself prosthetics. Typically, if you lose a leg or lose an arm and have to have a prosthetic, it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a prosthetic. But they actually have developed do-it-yourself open source prosthetics that cost as little as $200. And you can have a working, I think we feature a working hand.
Mm-hmm. Yes, functioning.
Issue. Yeah, functioning hand, which is pretty amazing.
Right.
For only a couple $100. So yeah, that's a really cool article, and we're excited to have you guys explore that one and see that. So, and then Holomics will be in the next issue. So
That's
we'll talk
right.
about that
in the
later
biology
on.
issue.
Yeah. So then we talked about RealLife Superheroes. So we often think of superheroes, Spider-Man, Superman, all those kind of guys that have superpowers. But the truth is, there are superheroes that are all around us all the time that are helping serve our country in the military, that protect us in the police department, that keep us safe at the fire department, that educate our children. Ellen and I are both teachers, and we've had teachers. We have families of teachers, and I know that teachers out there are definitely superheroes to me. So we got a chance to talk to actually a good friend of mine, Graham Pinard, lives out in McCall, Idaho. And in addition to being the music teacher at the high school and middle school there, choir, band, orchestra, he also is a firefighter, and he also is an EMT. And for a pizza, he'll give you a raft ride in the summer. I'm pretty sure he does a rafting tour company out there too. So, but what was interesting talking to Graham was, firefighting and EMT work especially require a great deal of problem solving. We always say about how problem solving is a key part of STEM, and being able to analyze information, being able to determine what's the best course of action to take. But firefighting and EMT work also have taken on a huge amount of technology recently in terms of the tools that they use to fight fires.
That's right. Much more so than I ever realized before we sat down and talked with Graham. And what I think is cool about this article is, you don't think of your band director as, a real life superhero, but Graham really is. I mean, he dedicates his entire summer to wildfire management, to firefighting, to EMT work, and it's just a really cool example of what you can do with the right STEM skills and how multifaceted people can be. Too often I think students are intimidated by a particular profession because they feel like they'll be stuck there for 50 years. That doesn't have to be the only side of you and the only part of your life. You can pursue other passions as well. And I think Graham's a great example of that.
Absolutely. So if you're in McCall, Idaho, give Graham a shout out. Again, pizza, rafting trip. He also knows lots of good fishing places out there too.
And if you get hurt, he can save your life. So that's
yeah,
exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a good guy to have around for sure. So,
and to go along with that article, we have what I think is a really neat lesson plan around using science and math to make decisions in an emergency situation. So in this lesson plan, we actually put students in the role of firefighters who are called about multiple fires in the area, and they have to think about fire load, fuel, they have to think about the water that they have available in their truck if there aren't hydrants, and make some both calculations and some logical calls about which fire to attack first and why.
Right.
So I really like that this is a great real life example of applying science, applying math concepts, and also logical reasoning to make decisions. There's no one right answer about which fire to respond to first. There are answers backed up by the math that you do. There are also answers backed up by who's being affected and who could potentially be affected if the fire goes out of control.
Yeah. And that's what I like too, is that's in math classes, students often focus on getting the right answer. And that there is a right mathematical answer to what the fire load is in that building, but that's only a small part of the puzzle. The mathematics and the answer you get there is just a consideration that you take in the overall process, and that's how the real world works. Is you have to look at the data, you've got to use the right tools to come to some conclusions about what the information says, but then you've got to also use all kinds of other factors and put it together and figure out. If my truck only has this much water in it and that truck has more water in it, which way do we go? If that building is close to a school, for instance, versus being a warehouse in an open field, maybe there's a priority for that reason. So all kinds of things, and students can argue, using the data, they can argue different sides of the issue and make a good case that, well, I would rather go there than there. And that's how the world works, and that's one of the things that I love about that article. Or about that lesson plan. So then the very last article we have is about the Talos Suit, which is essentially a real-life Iron Man kind of suit.
That's right. So the military is currently designing this Talos Suit, and there are some different versions and some different qualities available. They're still making some decisions from contractors. Yep. But basically, it uses an almost Google Glass type of vision system to enhance night vision and give soldiers 360-degree views of what's around them.
Information.
That's right. And then they also use some different body armor systems. So, most soldiers have to carry all their supplies on their back, and it's not comfortable, and it leads to lower back pain, some knee problems, a lot of fatigue in the legs. And the cool thing about the Talos is that it's almost like an exoskeleton. So it wraps around the whole body, which distributes the weight much more evenly, but also allows them to have flexible body armor wrapped around their bodies. So one development that they're considering is to use this liquid body armor. There are two different versions. One is almost like oobleck, that cornstarch and water mix that you play with as a kid, where whenever it's impacted, it acts like a solid and can actually stop a bullet. But the rest of the time it's fluid, so it's flexible and bends with the soldier as they're moving through the field. The other version actually uses a magnetic field or an electrical pulse to turn it solid when necessary. Yep. So if soldiers are going into a combat situation, they can apply that current and protect themselves. And then finally, the really cool, kind of life-changing part of the Talos is a wound dressing system. So the one that they're looking at right now is foam-based, and it will actually sense when there's a wound on the soldier and apply this foam to the wound to cleanse it, to treat it, and seal it. And, if you're in the field, in battle, the ability to stop bleeding until someone can get medical attention is literally life and death.
Yep.
So some really cool things are happening. And as we've talked about, with a traditional Iron Man suit, it's heavy, it's inflexible. If a part breaks in the middle of the desert, you're out of luck.
You're stuck.
But they're doing some really cool things. So this is an article that we actually have one of our digital lesson plans created for, where students get to act like contractors and pitch to the rest of their class, which is the Department of Defense, their design for the vision system, for the body armor, and for the wound dressing system.
Right.
And they're making a pitch, and in the end, after the presentations are made, the class decides which body armor is the best based on their demonstrations and based on their facts, which vision system they want to go with, and which of the wound dressing systems they think would be the most effective.
Yeah.
So again, getting the kids to think about, what would I change? What would I do to protect, the men and women who are protecting us? What would I add to the suit? We give them an opportunity to do that as well. So some really cool things.
That's just one of our digital lesson plans that are available. We've got one that we're working on around building your own musical instrument, where you get to learn about some of the sound properties of waves, or the wave properties of sound.
There you go.
Something like that.
That
And then also one where you get to design your own board game and think about some of the statistics and things that go into that and different probabilities with designing a game. But again, big artistic design component to that.
And one of the coolest things, I think, is whenever we asked the people at Shell Games what advice they would give to high school students who want to be in the video game industry, every one of them said, start making games right now. Stop what you're doing. Make board games, make card games, make any kind of games that you can, because they all function the same way. So we want to give students a little window into that opportunity and give them an opportunity to design a board game. It's something accessible for students who have never really tackled something like that before, but also engaging enough for students who maybe want to play video games for the rest of their lives and get paid for it. And it's an important stepping stone for them.
Yep. And if you're wondering about how to get access to the digital lesson plans, those are available to schools that have either purchased our classroom kits, purchased lesson plan subscriptions, or who have been sponsored by a college or employer. If you're interested in knowing about how you can get sponsored or how you can purchase those subscriptions or get access to those materials, you can contact us at info@stemjobs.com. That's info@stemjobs.com. I think that's about all we have for this session. So we'll be back in a little while to talk about the early spring issue, which is all around biology and chemistry. Holomics is one of those companies we'll talk about there. And until then, thanks for stopping by, and do what you love.